Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to YouTube Live. Today we're going to be discussing Islam in Mexico with Brother Rafael. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam, brother. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you very much for asking. So let me just give you guys a bit of history. We found Rafael in Mexico, in Guadalajara. That's a good way of putting it, right? So Alhamdulillah, he's been with IERA for I think 2 years now.
Yes, about 2 years.
About two
Actually,
years
it was you guys came in April 2018.
Oh, exactly 2 years. MashaAllah.
Yeah.
That's very good. And before this, Rafael, he obviously became Muslim. And after becoming Muslim, he, mashallah, went to Medina University, studied there, came back to Mexico, and he has been running a mosque in Mexico for new Muslims for many, many years now. And what I wanted to do was, I wanted to come onto this, I wanted Rafael to come onto this live stream for a few reasons. Number one, to explain the importance of Dawah in Latin America and in particular Dawah in Mexico, how he came to Islam, which may be a little bit unorthodox when people hear how he became Muslim, and why communities such as the communities in Mexico and Uruguay and other places, these communities are ripe to accept Islam. So to get us started off, Rafael, why don't you tell us, firstly, how's the lockdown? How's it going?
Very nice. Alhamdulillah, I'm taking advantage of my house finally. Because usually I'm not at home. So right now I'm spending more time with my family. I have some time to read, to do the things that I like. So, trying to do the best as possible. I miss the Dawah, of course, the street Dawah. I miss Dawah missions to other cities. But it is the best can be, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, that's really great to hear. And the thing which is funny about Rafael is that he has this car that looks like it's the car that you you kidnap children in. It's this old banger, and he just drives it around Mexico, just giving dawah to people and conveying the message of Islam. Brother Eddie just joined us as well from Sao Paulo. MashaAllah, he's another one of our outreach specialists. We're going to have him live, inshallah, soon in Ramadan. And so basically, Rafael, the first thing I want to ask you is, if you just tell us about your story of how you became interested in Islam, and what was it that made you think about these questions at a very early age?
Well, first of all, I think I was not really interested in Islam. That's it. That's the funny thing, because I was not interested in Islam, to be honest. I was just thinking about it as a cultural thing, just to get to know other stuff, other cultures, other ways of thinking. So what happened was that I used to play chess online. I used to play a lot. There was a chapter in my life that I got really tired of my lifestyle. I used to work in the mornings, and then I used to go to school in the afternoon. I used to go to high school, and then in the evenings I used to go and study to a private English school, right? So I kept going this way for, I don't know, maybe 8 months, maybe a year, and I got really tired. Consider that I was only 17 years old, 16 or 17 years old. So it was a lot of activities according to my age, right? I was living like an adult, and it didn't correspond to me. So I really got tired, and I started skipping my classes in the afternoon. I just told my parents, yes, I'm going, but when they went to work, I just stayed home, play video games, stay home alone, And I started to play chess on the internet, on a few websites. And I was not really that bad playing chess, so I spent easily 3, 4, 5 hours in a row playing chess. So I started playing chess with people from around the globe. But one good day, I played against someone from a Muslim country. So I got a lot of curiosity because of the flag, the crescent moon and the star. And this was something new to me. I knew most of the flags because I love soccer. So I
Okay.
know many football teams, yeah, and the flags and the national teams. But I was confused about this special flag. So I started doing some research and found out that it was a Muslim country. So I realized that I didn't know anything about Islam, and that's the starting point of my research. I go to download the Quran, a translation of the Quran in Spanish on my computer, and the plans of Allah are perfect. This
Yeah.
specific time was perfect because in my parents' house we only had one computer, one desktop all computer. We only had one, and I have two sisters and my father, and all of us used that computer. So my father used to be very strict, and this is something good. This is something that now I thank to him, right? Before I was upset, but now I thank to him. So he used to give us just 1 hour, 1 hour to myself, 1 hour to my sisters, 1 hour to himself. So as I was home alone, I had plenty of time to use the computer. And
Mhm.
most of that time when I got the Quran, I started reading it. And I kept the file secret, so nobody in my house could read the Quran, could find out that I was reading the Quran, such a strange thing, right? Such a strange book. All my family was Catholic back then.
Mhm.
So I was reading the Quran and I spent easily 4 or 5 hours. I didn't go to school just to read the Quran. So I ended up reading the whole Quran maybe in 2 weeks, let's say. In about 2 weeks,
Mhm.
I read it in Spanish, obviously. But I was really surprised for the content of the Quran, the meanings, and of course the beauty of the script in Arabic. I didn't know anything of the Arabic language, but the designs, the calligraphy, it was so beautiful that I was very attached to the Quran. So I took my Shahada alone, basically in front of my computer. I did the research and I took my Shahada by myself. And I was thinking that I was the only crazy Muslim in town. I didn't know any Muslims in Guadalajara, in my city.
Wow.
A good day, I came across a website of the local Muslim community, and it was in Ramadan actually. Now I remember that we are about to start Ramadan next week, inshallah. It was in Ramadan, so I'm trying to remember the most
What year is
details.
this?
I'm sorry.
What year is this?
I think it was in 2009, 2008, 2009. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. So there was a holiday, the Mexican Independence Day, and I think it was a Wednesday. Yeah, it was a Wednesday because I was off from work and I was off from school. I had all day free for myself, so I decided to visit the place of the community. It was a musalla next to a railway, right? It was in a very unsafe area actually, but I decided to go since the transportation was not working as usual. I took my father's bicycle and I just rode to this venue on my father's bicycle. Probably is around 8 kilometers, maybe 5 miles away from my house, from my parents' house. So I rode all the way. I stayed there. I met some brothers that I still know up today. I met a Pakistani brother actually. I remember I was very nervous that day, and I was expecting to find the minarets, a big building, a big looking mosque, and I didn't find any. But I found a guy. The streets were empty. It was like one of these days. It was like empty streets completely. So I found this guy on the door, and I asked him if he knew where the mosque was, and he said, "Yes, actually, it is here." So I was like, "Oh, really? Okay." So he invited me in. He was very kind, mashallah. He's a very good brother. Uh, he's from Pakistan, but lives in Mexico now. And and he took me in. He gave me the same Quran that I was reading actually on my computer. He gave it to me, but physically. It was a
Okay.
red Quran, mashallah. So it was very special to me. He gave me some other books, and then they gave us prayer mat, and they had me take the Shahada again in front of the community.
Wow.
People were so excited. I didn't know what was happening. I was very nervous. I was extremely.
How
But I
old
really,
were you? 18 at the time?
I think I was 17 by that time.
Okay, so here's what I want to ask you, Rafael. That
Yeah.
at the age of 17, youngsters, the last thing they're thinking about is the last thing they're thinking about is, man life in the universe. They're thinking of the Latinos, they're thinking of the cocktails, the music, especially Mexico, Guadalajara. The brothers who I know, they went there for a Dawah mission, they had to lower their gaze. Like, it's that type of place. So why would a 17-year-old with their hormones up to the sky be interested in these questions to do with meaning?
I don't find any explanation, but Allah protected me sincerely. Allah protected me from so many things.
Oh,
See, the
God.
neighborhood where I used to live, it's a special neighborhood. You know, uh,
Oh, those
it's the
neighborhoods.
hood. It's the hood, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
so, so I don't have any explanation to this. I have thought about it many times, and the only thing I can tell is that Allah protected me. So I thank Him for many things, and one main thing that I'm thankful is for guiding me to Islam. If I think of my friends, if I think of the environment where I grew, the school where I studied, the friends that I had, it's very unlikely that someone could have become a Muslim. And I still remember my dad on the weekends, the Latinos on the weekends, what do? They just go to party.
Street
So,
parties.
yeah, exactly. So I remember my father, he used to tell me on the weekends, Rafa, you're very young, you should go out. He used to be very desperate, you should go out, why you stay home? So I was I was a different type of Latino.
Yeah.
I was not the standard. And still
Humble.
I'm not the standard, I believe. But the only explanation I found is that Allah guided me, Allah protected me. Otherwise I would have gone astray and done many things.
Yeah. So a quick question. Like when me and you, when we met when we were traveling around Latin America, because me and
Yeah.
Rafael, we traveled from Belize to Guatemala to Salvador to, no, where did we go after Salvador? We went to
El
Costa
Salvador,
Rica,
Costa Rica, Panama.
Panama, and then it sounds like we were doing something illegal, but we actually did the Dawa. Then we ended up in Ecuador, and
In Colombia.
throughout me and him were having this battle about who can eat more spicy food. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Rafael actually managed to beat me. But anyway, that Pakistani brother, obviously he gave you Shahada and they helped you out. But was there any new Muslim support for you at that age, or were you sort of left to sort of survive on your own?
Well, I think there was very little new Muslim support. Actually, the only activity that we had back then was the Jummah prayer. We used to rent, the community used to rent the place where I took the Shahada in front of the community. That place was rented for a few years, maybe 3, 4 years, but that was only for the Jummah prayer. After the Jummah prayer, sometimes you could see the Muslims leaving right after the prayer, and then other people used to go inside of that venue and have parties inside. They used to study. Other people used to have parties there, so it was just a place for the Juma prayer. And that's it. That's it.
Bro, Rafael, from everything you've said, you're not helping the Mexican stereotypes. Continuous partying, let's just put on the music and put on the hat and woo. What's funny about Latin America is you guys love street parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that is, I think that's unique to Latin America. It's not really something you see in other parts of the world. Just at the end of the road, everyone just gets together, old people as well, and they all just drink and have a party. It's like your local Facebook.
Yeah, anybody can just get the car, block the street, and suddenly they have a party.
Okay, so now I want to take the viewers on a sort of jump from being a 17-year-old in Mexico to ending up in Medina University, right? And what your experiences were like there. So, why did you decide to go? What did you study? And how was that short time that you were there? How did it go?
Well, it was a tough decision. Actually, I was thinking of studying philosophy. Alhamdulillah, Allah kept me away from that too. No, I'm just kidding. So I was thinking of studying philosophy back then. I was just finishing
So,
my high
the
school.
last thing the world needs is a Mexican philosopher. He'll be talking
Definitely.
about the philosophy of party. No, I mean, of course you have great Mexican academics, but you in particular being a philosopher, I don't think the world needs that.
I don't think so. So
Yeah, I don't think anybody
see,
needs
that's what I'm saying. Allah protected me. If I was on my own, I would be a disaster, total disaster.
that.
So I was thinking of studying philosophy, and then I took my Shahada. I didn't tell my family actually. I kept it secret. The day I took Shahada, I took the books and I just went inside of my house, hid everything. And one day, a brother from Mexico City, he visited us in Guadalajara, and we had very good conferences, which was something very new in our town, right? In our city, it was something new. So I was very excited for getting knowledge about Islam from people that had studied. And this brother, his name is Isa. He studied in Medina, and I spoke to him, and he basically invited me to go to Medina. He said, "You know what? You can go to Medina if you want to study. I'm studying there. I'm about to finish. If you wanted, I could get you enrolled, right?" So I said, "Okay, let's try. Let's do it." And I was applying also to a university in Spain, in Universidad de Salamanca. And I don't remember which other, but I was trying to apply to different universities. I didn't want to live in Guadalajara, to be honest. I wanted to live somewhere else. So this brother submitted my application in Medina. It took about 2 years. So in the meantime, I was working. I was saving some money. One good day, I was about to be promoted, and the next day, they admitted me to Medina Munawara in the Islamic University. So it was like the first big test for me. I decided to accept going to Medina. It was the best experience that I could tell in terms of religious experiences, mashallah. So I was studying there Arabic language. I was there in 2012, 2013. I had to interrupt my studies. I wish I could continue, but I had to interrupt my studies because my mother got sick, and I was very worried, for her future. She was not
Yeah.
a Muslim, so she was going to have surgery. I asked for permission to come. Alhamdulillah, everything went well, and 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 after a few months, I basically got married, and since then I'm here in Guadalajara. But what I did study in Medina was Arabic language in these years that I mentioned, 2012, 2013. But something that I really appreciate is that in the afternoons, in the evenings, I used to go with the brothers of knowledge, the students of knowledge, and there was a brother from Egypt teaching Arabic and teaching the recitation of the Quran in Masjid al-Nabawi. So
Wow.
this was something very beautiful. May Allah reward him for his huge patience with the Latinos. We need a lot of patience. We need a lot of support. We learn about Islam. We learn about Arabic languages very slowly, like very slowly, because it's very difficult for us. So it was a very good time actually, alhamdulillah. And of course, after that, the knowledge continues. I'm still trying to learn here and there, watching Subur's videos, learning from Ayera's materials. Alhamdulillah, but yes, studying in Medina was basically the best religious experience that I could that I could imagine. When I went there, actually, that was the time when I openly recognized that I was Muslim. I had to tell my family. They asked me, "But why are you going there? Why are you going to Saudi Arabia? It's full of Muslims there. You shouldn't go there. It's full of Muslims." I said, "So what? I'm a Muslim too." They were shocked. But that was the time when I admitted that I was a Muslim. Alhamdulillah.
Wow. Wow. I mean, I'm actually thinking at a time where I can imagine you being 17 years old and a lot more, younger, and basically looking at your computer screen, typing away and looking at the chess game. And then Allah made you from that to a Muslim to actually going to Medina and then coming back and then representing the dawah in Mexico and going around giving dawah. I mean, how Allah plans, Subhanallah. It's just
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
amazing.
subhanallah. And it's a very special feeling, you know. Sometimes I think about it, and I just think that I'm not the best one for this job, you know, because it's a job of the prophets. And I know myself. I know I have a lot of you know difficulties. I have a lot of mistakes. Uh, but subhanallah, for some reason, he has put me in this way, and just try to do the best I can. But sometimes, yeah, I do believe that I'm not deserving of this position.
Definitely, definitely. Reminds me of what one of the scholars said once about if you see somebody going from practicing to completely stop practicing, it's for two reasons. The first reason is that they they didn't thank Allah for being guided, and the second reason is that they look down upon others. Because you always have to, the way I like to think about it is you always have to remind yourself that you're a scumbag.
Hey, exactly, exactly.
always remind yourself, that's how, rubbish you are as a person, how incompetent you are. It works. It works honestly because
Yeah,
it's better to be a humble person who slips up than be a
absolutely.
perfectionist who's like, who's thinking, oh, I'm better than other people and whatnot. So anyway, now I want to get down to this, bro. So Mexico has it's very interesting about the spread of Islam in Mexico for a few reasons. Firstly, there is a lot of Mexican Americans, right? A lot of
Mhm.
Mexican Americans, and there seems to be an explosion of Islam amongst Mexican Americans. I've met Mexican reverts from America. They're very zealous for Islam. They're very passionate, and for Islam, for them, it's become almost second nature. It's like they're accepting it in big numbers. But then
Yeah,
obviously those Mexicans are going back to Mexico. But then there's the indigenous movement of Islam in Mexico, and that indigenous movement looks very primitive, right? It looks very new. So what are your sort of thoughts on the Dawah in Mexico and Islam in Mexico?
well, alhamdulillah, for many years, people didn't know anything about Islam. Something interesting happens is that I truly believe that there were Muslims before the Spaniards came to Mexico, but all that history has been erased, basically. I found buildings, I found people, and it's something amazing. I just wish I could get to know more about that, but there's so much difficulty found in reliable information on this. But anyway, for many years, the Mexicans didn't know anything about Islam. Mexicans are born and raised in Christianity, Catholicism. So this is the biggest religion in Mexico. But in the last 20, 30 years, people is starting to think in a deeper way on their religion, on the belief that they follow. And they found many inconsistencies in the Christianity, right? So most of the people, if you ask them what's their religion, they will tell you that they believe in God, but they follow no specific religion. They just follow Catholicism because of tradition, because they inherited from their parents, right? So this is something very interesting because when they get to know about Islam, their ideas actually match. They have this idea. They still have some fitra inside. You know, the fitra is still in them. They believe in one creator. They believe in Allah. They believe in God. But most of the people, they don't practice. I mean, they don't submit, or they have intermediaries. For example, they have a saint, or they have some type of angels, or they worship virgins. These kind of things. So when you talk to them about the Tawheed and you explain why Allah is the only one worthy of worship, they accept it. But most of them didn't have a chance yet to get to know about Islam.
Yeah.
So when they get to know about Islam, everything matches. It's like, oh, this is what I always believed, but I didn't know there was a religion with my belief. So, Alhamdulillah, the acceptance of Islam in Mexico is very good. It just needs some time, When I converted to Islam 11, 12 years ago, the Jummah prayer, we used to pray maybe 10, 15 people, 10, 15 people maximum. In the in the times when most of the people attended, let's say an Eid al-Fitr or Eid al-Adha, you could see 30, 40 people, 50 people sometimes. But now the community is growing exponentially. Let's say in this masjid where uh, that we opened in Guadalajara 6 years ago, around 750 people have accepted Islam. And if you consider the people in other towns, in other cities, Islam is growing very fast in Mexico. To be honest, I think Islam is growing very fast. So we basically need more people to invest in time teaching Islam to non-Muslims. The basic concepts, and of course, taking care of the new Muslims because once they become Muslims, the support is that's the real job. The real job starts when they take the Shahada. So the dawah is active now, alhamdulillah, but it's still we need more people engaged in this field.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And it's amazing to see how much it's grown with very little effort. And the towns and the villages and the different places that you visit, I mean, just a short visit has such an impact on the new Muslims. It motivates them, and sometimes even people accept Islam. Now we're going to start taking questions which are related to obviously Islam in Mexico and the dawah there. So Vincent Buckles, he's actually a revert brother who's, I think he said earlier that his family is part Mexican. And said, so his question is, well, he's got two questions here, but I'll ask the second one. What is your dawah approach? Like in Mexico, what are people like and how would you approach them about Islam?
The Gorak approach is very effective here because most of the people, they do believe in God. So you just make sure they do believe in God, but then you make sure about the Tawheed. You have to talk to them and you have to explain the reasons why only Allah is worthy of worship, why we shouldn't worship any other being, any virgin, any saint, or any prophet.
Yeah.
And explain why Jesus is a prophet of God, is not the Son of God, is not God, is not part of the Trinity.
Yeah.
And if you explain to them from a historical context, it's very powerful actually. And if you are successful explaining the Tawheed to the Mexican people, it's very easy that they accept Islam. The rest is just handing over a Quran to them. Most of them, they will like it. They will love the Quran, to be honest, because the teachings of the Quran, the style is beautiful. It's something that someone cannot deny.
Yeah.
So the approach is very simple. Another very effective way to approach the Mexican people is teaching the basics. Just teach the pillars of Iman, the pillars of faith, and ask them if they have the same belief. Most of them, they will say that they have the same belief because that's in our feature. And in the Christianity, they also believe in the six pillars of faith, but they don't know this is the right name. So if they accept this, you just basically teach them about the pillars of Islam. You know, the Shahada, the five daily salat, and then the zakat, the five pillars, and you teach them slowly, like the way the Prophet used to do. Is very simple but very effective in Mexico, alhamdulillah. The
Yeah.
problem with the Mexican people is that we are not very used to following rules. That's the real problem.
You know, bro, you're like fulfilling every stereotype right here, right now.
Yeah, that's a problem because if somebody tells us you have to do this, we ask. I mean, we wonder why I have to do this. We
Yeah.
question everything. Or if somebody tells us why I cannot do this, if somebody says to us you cannot do this, we immediately reply, why? Why can I do this? So, you know, we are bad following rules. That's the problem with the Mexican people, to be honest. And that's the real struggle that we have to submit to the Creator and also to His laws, to His commandments. I think that's a real struggle with Mexican
Yeah.
people, including myself, of course.
Yeah. And that sort of segues into the next question, which is by Rain. Are Mexicans mostly materialistic or are they religious people?
Mm, I think there's a gap in the generations. If you would think of the previous generations, let's say the people that were born in the 1970s, 1960s, you would think that they are mostly religious, more religious than materialistic. But if you think in the newer generations, they don't care more about religion. They are more into materialistic stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Would you say that Mexicans have this um, thing which I've seen in other Latino countries? I mean, I haven't been to Mexico, but they'll have a materialistic side where they have a party and they have this and they have that. But when someone dies or someone's born or it's Christmas or there's a problem in their life, that's when their religiosity seems very strong. That's just been
Exactly.
like my anecdotal. Yeah, so it's
Exactly.
always there in the background, you know?
Yeah, it does happen in Mexico too. Most of the people, they never think about the hereafter. They believe
Yeah.
in the hereafter. They know that they are going to die, but never think of it. They never remember about death, and
Hmm.
that's another problem.
Yeah.
Until they see a very strong disease, for example, now with the coronavirus going on, many people is remembering about religion, is
Yeah.
remembering about Allah, is remembering about God. But when this does not happen, they
Yeah.
just live the life, you know, they live in the dunya.
Yeah.
So another time when they get closer to the religion is when they get old, you know. Older people are more religious than the younger people, right?
Yeah.
And this is something that you can see in
Yeah.
Mexico a lot.
I mean, I can imagine an old Mexican man or old Mexican woman being very religious, and I can imagine only 30 years ago or 40 years ago in the 1970s, they were like disco and party. So yeah, they have.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But you said something about Mexicans and death. So I want to find out because obviously the best person to give dawah in Mexico is somebody from Mexico who understands the culture, the language, the history, the sensitivity, and this type of thing. So as an outsider, I want to know about Mexican culture. And there's one particular thing about Mexicans. which is I find very bizarre, right? I want to know what is this, and it's something which I think a lot of people get very surprised at, is that you have this type of death parade that happens every year, yeah, where it's like all these people they dress up in a certain way, and it's like almost like a celebration of death, and there's a lot of
Yes.
people documentaries about it. It's like comical, but what is the history of this, and what is that about?
Mexican people like to make fun of everything. They make fun even about death. That's that's something very typical of our culture. So it's actually uh, it's originated in the pre-Hispanic culture. Before the Spaniards came to Mexico,
Yeah.
the Aztecs and other cultures were practicing this. There is a
Really?
belief, yeah, yeah. So basically, there's a mix. Right now, there's a mix with the ancient belief, the Aztec and the other religious beliefs. It got mixed with the Roman belief and
Mm.
with the Christian belief. So it's pretty much up. Uh, this death parade that you mentioned, it
Yeah.
actually does exist. It
Yeah.
happens every year in November 1st and the 2nd. On the 1st of November, they celebrate the children that passed away, right?
Right.
And on the 2nd day of November, they celebrate all the rest of the people that passed away. So what they do, I don't know how to explain that in English, but they basically create like
Mummies.
I'm sorry.
Mummies.
No, it's something different. They actually create like a place where the spirit of the dead body will return,
Yeah.
and they put in this place everything that he used to like. For
Yeah.
example,
Alcohol and
yeah, exactly. Let's say Subur, he loves roti and he loves the rice and biryani. If Subur passes away, they will put a picture of Subur and they will put everything that he used to like when he was alive, right? His drinks, his food, his
Jesus.
clothes, everything that he used to like, because they believe that on this particular day, the spirit of or the soul of the dead body will return to this to this world or to this life, and he will enjoy everything that the people prepared for him. And it's very strange, I have reflected on this, and I believe it's something related to the jinn. There's a very strong culture of sorcery, of magic in Mexico.
Yeah.
So this actually does happen, but it's related to the jinn. The jinns are very smart in a bad way, and they deceive people basically,
Yeah.
making them believe that it is their lost loved one, but it's actually a jinn.
Yeah. No. Definitely. I mean, if you look at a lot of cultures which have these shirky elements, where they are
Yeah,
involved in witchcraft or death cults or these types of things, if you speak to the followers and you say, "Why on earth are you doing this? This doesn't make any sense," they'll give you
yes,
stories of where a particular witch or particular sorcerer told them something about their loved ones that nobody knows. Right?
exactly.
I had this experience when I was in London that there was this area in which there were some Hindu temples in northwest London, West London, and basically the Hindu pundits they were doing some sort of seher or something, which people thought was they didn't call it jinn, they didn't call it seher, they just thought he was a holy man, but he
Yes,
had information which no one could have known. Yeah, and I've spoken to several people, not only Muslims, to non-Muslims as well. Yeah, and this thing has repeatedly come up about sorcerers and people like this. They'll obviously talk a lot of nonsense, but there's other times they'll give you information which is impossible for anybody else to know. Yeah.
yes.
So I think you're right. I think it's linked to, you know, something like this, something like jinns or whatnot. One more thing I wanted to ask you is obviously in Mexico there is the idea that Islam was there before, the Spaniards came. But also, if you remember, when we were in Ecuador, we were having a conversation, and you told me that the Aztecs, the Mayans, and the Incas, they even have records of people that came to teach them monotheism, and those people were killed.
Exactly. Yeah, some of them were killed. There are some brothers in the community that have studied history in a very good level, or anthropology, and I have asked these questions because I was curious when I read in the Quran. It's an invitation to everybody, right? When it says, "You walk this earth and go and see what happened to the people that denied our signs."
Yeah.
Right? It's like a challenge. You can go and see. You can see what happened to them.
Yeah.
So, if I think on what happened to the ancient Mexican cultures, they just simply disappeared, or they were destroyed, or they were conquered. So Allah also says in the Quran that He sent messengers to every town, to every people, right? So I was curious about if any Mexican culture received a messenger or a prophet,
Yeah.
and I found that some people actually got to know a person whose name in Nahuatl language, which is the local language of the Aztecs, is Netzahualcoyotl. His name was Netzahualcoyotl, right? So there was a man who used to teach Tawhid, right? The Aztecs, they used to worship idols. They used to worship the god of the moon, the god of the sun, the god of the fertility, the god of love, and so on and so forth. So this guy, what he did is teach them that it was absolutely wrong. And another bad practice of the Aztecs was that they used to slaughter people. They used to
Mm.
have a game, right? And the team that won the games, that team used to get slaughtered and they got cooked. So they used to make food from them, right? It was dedicated to their idols, to their gods. So this man also taught them that it was an absolutely wrong practice. So
What's his
I
name?
strongly, I'm
What's his
sorry,
name?
his name was Nezahualcoyotl.
Brother Jerry from Ira,
Yeah.
the Irish brother, he's working on a book, inshallah, on collecting all this data from around the world where people believed in Tawheed before Islam, Tawheed
Yeah.
even before Christianity. Yeah. So whatever references you can come up with, find them through the academics or whatever. Send them over to me, and I'll send them to Jerry because inshallah we're planning on having this book, Belief Beyond Borders, or whatever we're going to call it, because this is phenomenal. You're absolutely right, and it's
Yeah.
not only true in today's Latin America. In historically, all across the world, ancient China, ancient India, ancient Persia, ancient Africa, every single place, without a doubt, before even Isa alayhi salam, before even Jesus, there were people calling to Tawheed. And that's phenomenal if you think about it. So it's very,
Yeah.
very. Okay, so I've got a question here, which is and are there any challenges which are particular to Mexican dawah which don't exist in North America or Europe?
Mm, the criminal groups, maybe the gangs, the cartels. Yeah, in some areas it's very unsafe to go and make dawah. You have to really think
Yeah,
about it before going
yeah,
certain areas, and because these groups they actually have their own belief and they are very strict on their belief. They don't allow other people to go and preach to them.
yeah,
So this is a challenge that we face here.
yeah,
Another challenge is that we have very few massages, we have very few mosques, and we have very few people with knowledge. We have a lot of Muslims recently, but we have very little people to teach. Um, in other countries, I have seen that, let's say in Europe, in the UK, in Germany, in Spain, Anywhere that you go, in, even in the United States, you can easily find a mosque anywhere. Almost in every neighborhood, you can find a masjid. In Mexico, let's say in my city, Guadalajara, it's a city with 7 million people approximately, and we only have two massages, two mosques.
That's crazy.
And there are towns where there is no mosques, there is no musalla, and there is only one Muslim or two Muslims, or I don't know, 5, 10 Muslims. These actually are the communities where I like to work, places where there's only one Muslim or no Muslims at all, because
Yeah.
uh, if they get to know Islam and they accept Islam, they will be very strong on their faith.
Yep.
In if they become consistent, they become regular in Islam. Mashallah, their faith is very strong and they make big things. But yeah, this is another big challenge that we face in Mexico.
Yeah. And it's very interesting that with very little resources, you can have massive results, right?
Yeah.
In Mexico, and that's something that is true all across Latin America. But I would say it's more true in places like Mexico as opposed to Argentina because of the poverty, yeah, and also the crime and the other sorts of things. The other thing which I just wanted to quickly note on is I've been watching some stuff about Mexican cartels and these types of things. It seems they see themselves as community leaders as well. They provide aid, they provide security, they provide all these services. So it's
Yeah.
not just the case. Am I right in understanding that people love them in some of these places?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. They even worship them. Imagine they even worship them. There are saints and there are churches dedicated to them. You know. So yeah, they're community leaders. They help people. Of course, the damage they do is huge, but people support them. People protect them even because they also receive some support from them. For example, now with the lockdown, some people have lost their jobs. They have financial issues, so they are going out on the streets and delivering food packages, or they're giving out money to the needy people. So of course, people appreciate that help.
Yeah, and there's a simple human nature aspect of human nature that if someone gives you something,
Hmm.
you respect them, you love that person, and at the end of the day, if you want to summarize the dawah is to get people to understand every single one of you has been blessed by Allah in ways that you can never imagine. And when a person internalizes that, it's so easy to worship Allah, it's so easy to obey Allah, it's so easy to love Allah. But if a person's always looking at, they have something, I don't have it, that person's rich, that person this, and when you start thinking, actually, no, we have like everything, right? We have everything, and people don't have anything in the world, then it's very, very much hard to talk to people who are like always thinking about what they don't have as opposed to what they do have.
Exactly.
Okay, there's a question here about why do Mexicans worship, and I've forgotten the name, so I'm going to look for it again. Saint something. There's actually a name. Let's see where
The
it
name of
is.
a saint?
Yeah. So I've got it here on the screen. Why do some Mexicans worship Santa Murati? What is
Oh,
that?
okay. Oh, they call it Santa Muerte, like
Muerte.
the Holy Death. So the Mexicans, they also believe in the angel of death,
Right.
but a part of the people, they actually worship death. They actually
Really?
worship the angel of death. Yeah, they make rituals, but it is very linked to sorcery, you know, because they do very crazy stuff. They take, I don't know, an animal, and they offer the sacrifice to this saint, this or any other saint. So yeah, why do Mexican people worship Santa Muerte? You know, it's the base of this is shirk, lack of knowledge on Tawheed, lack of trust in Allah, reliance on Allah.
Mm.
and desperation for getting things quick. The deception of shaitan, of course.
Mm. It kind of makes me think about when you don't have direct guidance,
Hmm.
you to try and find meaning in life, purpose in life, all these types of things. Because human beings want to connect to something greater.
Hmm.
Now, the ignorance of the idea, basically, the issue is that people, when they look at these things like this Santa, whatever it is, this becomes like a god replacement for them. It's like
Exactly.
they start thinking, okay, if I worship this thing, it'll give me something, it'll help
Hmm.
me, and this and this and this. But I do also find that Christianity has played, especially Catholicism, has played a role in
Hmm.
making people worship these types of things because of their multiple saints. Yeah,
Yes,
so
that's
it just
true.
becomes like something that is a runaway process.
That's true. That's true. Yes, and actually, some churches, some temples, they are dedicated to these saints or any other, because that's the main resource. I could even say that that's the way of income for them. That's the way they get the income. Let's say in a certain church there is this saint, and people start spreading uh, the saying of the saying Santa Muerte. It makes a lot of miracles. If you
Yeah.
ask for help from him, he will do a lot of things for you. You just have to be sincere. You just have to do some sacrifice, and he will help you. So people
Mm.
go there and help that church. So it becomes a way of income for them. So yes, you're right. Even the Catholic Church promotes in a certain way this, and it's the deception of shaitan, basically, because they it makes them believe that this saint is closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that that he is closer to Allah, and so he will talk to Allah on your behalf. Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is, as they say, there's nothing new under the sun. Um, the
Yeah.
Quraysh and the pagan Makkans, when they are asked, why do you worship these idols? They say to get closer to Allah. So it's the exact same
Exactly.
thing.
Exactly.
There's no difference between, if you look at the shirk that's done today, no different, no different today
Exactly.
than what's happened in the past. Now,
Yes,
Ghassan is
shaitan is.
asking, what?
Mhm. I
Yeah,
mean,
go
shaitan always makes us fall on the same drinks. We don't learn.
on. Yeah. It's the same old tricks. Yeah. So Ghassan is asking, what things do Mexicans find most surprising about Islam after learning about it? Very good question.
Mm, surprisingly, they don't know that we also believe in Isa alayhi salam. So when they get to know that we believe in Jesus in a different way than what they do believe, it's very surprising to them. It's also surprising to them finding out that we believe in Mary, the mother of Jesus alayhi salam. Uh, and they usually ask these type of questions about terrorism, extremism, and that we have a lot of women. This stereotypes. So when they get to know the the real aspects, the truth about Islam,
Yeah.
they like basically everything else. Everything I seen that they learn about Islam, they like it. But most surprisingly is our belief in Jesus, our belief in Mary, and our
Mm.
belief in the other prophets. They think that we actually worship another type of God. They
Yeah.
think that we worship the moon god, because we are based in the moon calendar. So the
Mm.
Spaniards made us believe that we worship a different type of God, and that we are supposed to kill all the Christians, that we are enemies of all this type of fake stuff.
Yeah. And something which I noticed in Latin America, which really it made me have made me feel worried and also sort of made me feel a bit better, right? So all across Latin America, and I'm assuming it's the same case in Mexico, there's a massive conversion from Catholicism to evangelism, right? American evangelism,
Yeah.
Protestant evangelism, right? That's obviously a hell of a lot better than becoming atheists, right? That's definitely better. Also, the evangelicals, and I met them all across Latin America. They were everywhere, right? They're closer to monotheism than Catholics because they'll say to the Catholics, "Well, they have all these saints, but we only have the one God and Jesus." so, so technically, their arguments are correct. Evangelicals are better than Catholics, right? Because it's directly, it's just the Trinity. It's no longer the saints, yeah. And they don't have idols. The evangelicals, they don't have the statues. They don't have these things. Also, in Mexico and other places, they have local idols and they have Catholic saints together. And evangelical houses. So is this the cause of the anti-Islamic questions? Are they coming more from the evangelicals than the Catholics?
You're right. They come more from the evangelicals and the Catholics. Most of the Catholics, they follow no religion, honestly. They follow the traditions, but they don't have religious knowledge in most of the cases. There is, of course, very studied people that have very good knowledge, but the evangelicals, I think they study more about their religion and also you know, the ideas that they get about Islam, which are fake, they come from the evangelical religion, not from the Catholicism.
Yeah, I find evangelicals they provide a lot of support, right?
Yeah.
They provide a lot of healthcare, food, hospitals, very well funded. Their manners are amazing. You know, they'll come over, they'll help you, they'll help the prostitutes, they'll help the HIV patients, they'll help cancer patients, they'll help disabled people, drug addicts. They're just so much focus on community and these types of things, and it's really surprising. But I mean, the statistics I heard in Salvador from one of the brothers was that Salvador had basically practically no evangelicals not that long ago. It was all Catholic, and today it's 50% evangelical, 50%, and that's a massive change if you think about it.
Yeah, but that's because of the community work. You're right. Yeah, it is because of community work. Yeah, absolutely. In Mexico, it's not that much the community support. The community work they do is not as big as in other countries because the Catholic religion is still very strong, especially the remote areas or in small towns. The Catholic tradition is still very strong, so they don't allow any other religion to be preached. But yeah, I think their main strength is this.
Yeah. And you know, one of the most powerful things about the dawah in Mexico is I'm actually not thinking about today. I'm thinking about 2070, yeah, which is we'll be long dead by then, especially the amount of spicy food both of us consume. I think we'll be gone by then, right? So by that time, you know, people are going to be benefiting from the works of the people who were the originators of the dawah in that place. I mean, I often think about the fact that my ancestors, going back from especially my mom's side, they were Hindu Rajas, yeah, which is a particular type of Hindu. And who gave them dawah a couple of 100 years ago? I don't know. But I am, you know, thankful, and inshallah I'll meet the person. And, you know, the stuff that you're doing is incredibly difficult, but we also have that hope that even though it's little, and even though it's just in its first stage, it's inshallah, if we're sincere, inshallah, if we work hard, it will go really far and really fast, inshallah.
Inshallah. Yes, and right now we have a lot of advantages. You know, the technology, like what we're doing right now. We're just talking about Islam. It's recording, and you don't know if 10 years later somebody will watch the video and Allah will touch his heart. You know, so we have a lot of advantages, Alhamdulillah, right now,
Yeah,
and yeah, inshallah, I really have the hope. It's very it's very motivating, to be honest, that if I think of the past of the Muslim community, the time when I just converted to Islam, if I see the situation of the Muslim community back then, and if I see it right now, to me it's very motivating, highly motivating. And
alhamdulillah.
inshallah, it will keep improving. Alhamdulillah, the people in getting involved in dawah is increasing. Sometimes we have the problem of having too many volunteers. Let's say we have an activity, and there's a lot of people who want to participate, and it's too difficult to manage too many volunteers. So that's a problem, but it's something very positive. And let's say sometimes in the prayers we don't fit in the masjid or in the massages that we have in Guadalajara. Sometimes we don't fit. So this is very positive. It's an issue, but it's something positive. Alhamdulillah. So
Okay.
I do believe that in the few years, maybe 5, 10, 20 years, inshallah, the community will be so much bigger, and we'll have many mosques. Probably the situation in Mexico right now is like it was in the UK or in the United States 30, 40 years ago, probably.
Yeah, subhanallah. One thing which really gives me hope today, and this is something way better than the likes of the past. Like, for example, the story you told me about of your somebody that you know, their relative, whose parents originally were from Malaysia, and they came and it all ended. The thing about today is it's not the case. So where Islam is growing in Mexico, and something happens, like 100 years ago, there's no social media, no historical record. It's just finished. Everything we do is online. Everything, even this conversation and the videos that you make in Spanish and everything, and somebody
Yeah.
can watch it years later, and you'd be very, very surprised. If somebody's sincere, they could make a video and it has 50 people watching it. One person changes, becomes Muslim. So,
Yeah.
we have I mean, Abdul Rahim Green, our chairman, he says this, that, if there's any time that we can spread Islam far and wide, it's the time of social media. Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is why I'm also pushing Rafael to be more active online. He's a little bit camera shy. He just likes to do his incognito dawah. But we got to make our dawah. Like, honestly, I'll be very frank with you. I had a conversation with Muhammad Hijab, and we were in the office, and we were
Yeah.
showing him the art of all of the dawah and our activities. And he said, guys, every single one of your Latino and your other reverts, they should be YouTubers, they should be social media stars, they should be reacting to popular videos in Mexico, such as soccer or this and that, and then within it, a little bit of Islam. Yeah, so it's not just always Islam, it's you're reacting, because reaction videos are really, really popular. Because at the end of the day, non Muslims who want to find out about Islam, they may be too shy to speak to a Muslim directly. So online, they can search, right? And through online activism, I'll give you one product of online activism, Rafael. I know somebody in Brazil who lives in a
Yeah.
village who became Muslim, and he's not met a Muslim in real life yet. And he prays and fasts, he learns Quran, and he gives dawah, and he became Muslim through the internet, and he's never met a Muslim. It's crazy.
Subhanallah.
It's crazy. This is the world that we're living in, and
Yeah.
we need to utilize it. So, any last advice you want to give us about how to support the dawah and the Islam in Mexico?
Well, we have a big opportunity in Mexico. Sometimes I tell the brothers in my community, uh, to learn, let's say, you should learn how to make the dance, you should learn how to lead the prayer, you should make dawah, you should do this and that, because you don't know if in the coming year there will be people fighting to make the adhan, right? There will be people fighting to make dawah. So you should take the chance now that you have it. So in
Alhamdulillah.
Mexico right now we have a big opportunity because the like I said, the people that practice Muslim that spread Islam is still the number is very low compared to the number of non-Muslims. Imagine we live in a country of 120 million people, right?
Mhm.
120 million people, and we estimate that there might be around 20,000 Muslims in Mexico.
Hmm.
What percentage is that? It's less than less than 1%. So my advice would be to get involved in Dawah, support it in whichever way you can. It could be either making videos like you are doing right now with an amazing job, mashallah. May Allah reward you. It could be by supporting financially certain Dawah activities. It could be encouraging the Muslims to make Dawah. It could be translating materials in Spanish because we have very few resources in Spanish language. It could be shipping books to Mexico. You know, there's a lot of things that we can do to get involved in Dawa, and the rewards are huge. Maybe we will not see it in this life. It's like you plant a palm tree. You might not see the results in this life, but some other people will be benefited from that effort you did, but you will see it in Jannah, right? Allah is aware of everything we do.
Yep.
Every little action we do, Allah is aware, and he, like he says in the Quran, he doesn't let the reward of the good doers be lost.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice.
That's beautiful advice, and there's a long time since I heard that verse, so it's always nice to hear it. One more thing I just wanted to add for everybody watching online. When people think of dawah, we get loads of messages as Aira. We get messages, I want a dawah. They don't even complete it with, I want to give dawah. It's, I want a dawah, 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 yeah? Look, you don't
Yeah,
need to travel to Mexico to give dawah, yeah? You don't need to travel across the world to give dawah. That time is sort of over now, yeah, especially with the lockdown, and even after the lockdown. With the internet, millions of Mexicans, they speak perfectly well English, especially university level students, right? There's so many avenues. There are many people here, like you accepted Islam through gaming, right? Through a chess thing, yeah? There's many Muslims who are on Discord, who are on Twitch, who are on Instagram, who are on all these different platforms. No matter what platform you're on, you could be on if you're a sister, you could be watching a makeup tutorial. If you're a brother, you could be watching Call of Duty. Don't think to yourself, I need to be in wudu, I need to wear a hat, I need to have a long beard, then I give people dawah. No, there and then, wherever you are, just say
yeah,
something about Islam, something even small, yeah? Because at the end of the day, Allah has selected certain people, yeah? And those certain people, they're going to be guided, inshallah. And you could be the means by that, because we believe as Muslims, anybody that's sincere, anybody that's humble, anybody that's looking for guidance, they'll get it. And we need to use our time wisely. I always tell my guests and other people as much as I can, this life, to be productive, you have to continuously think of death and continuously think that this life is a drop in the ocean and we're going towards eternity. Or else,
yeah.
it's very easy to become lazy and scroll through Facebook all day and all these types of things. To create urgency in your life, you have to continuously remember death.
Exactly, exactly. And we urgently need to make dawah because we don't know how much time we have.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely,
subhanallah.
definitely,
If Allah has saved us, we should be thankful and help others be saved as well.
definitely, absolutely. May Allah bless you, Akhi. It was wonderful having you. I'll have you again in a couple of weeks' time. I'm planning on rotating all of the Latin American Dawah team. By the way, I did mention before, I'll mention again anyway. Rafael actually is part of the IRA Latin American team. He heads Mexico. There's other people who head other countries. And we're going to have these guys regularly coming on the live streams, explaining the work that they're actually doing. And also, I want to use this channel as a format to give them as much exposure because there may be somebody here watching who thinks, you know what, I'm going to contact Rafael and I'm going to basically help him with his social media, or I'm going to volunteer, or somebody from Mexico may be watching. So it's a great way of spreading the message. Jazakallah khair, Rafael, for joining us. May Allah bless you and your family. And Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, brother. Wa alaikum salam.